Imagine you are the CEO of a mid-sized tech company.
Okay, I'm the CEO.
Right. And you and your team, you've spent years developing this, like, revolutionary new software algorithm.
Just completely burning cash on R&D, I assume?
Oh, totally. A
Ugh.
brutal cash-burning marathon. But you finally did it, you know. On
Nice.
August 20th, the government officially grants you the patent.
Huge milestone. Time to celebrate.
Exactly. You pop the champagne, you celebrate with the board, and you think the hard part is over.
But it's never over, is it?
Never. Because then two things happen in really rapid succession right before the financial year closes.
Okay, what happens?
First, your lawyers hand you a bill for 240,000 rupees just for the administrative process of registering that patent.
Annoying, but, pretty much expected.
Right. But then, like 3 months later, a rival company tries to steal your algorithm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you take them to court, you win, and you successfully defend your intellectual property.
Well, that's good news, right?
It is, but here's the catch. The legal bill for that lawsuit is 3,20,000 rupees.
Ouch.
Yeah, so you are sitting at your desk looking at over 500,000 rupees in legal fees tied directly to this one patent.
And all incurred in the exact same year.
Yes. So you tell your auditor to just, bundle all those costs together and stick them on the balance sheet.
Make it part of the total value of your shiny new asset.
Exactly. But your auditor looks at you and says, well, we can capitalize the smaller bill, but that massive 3.2 lakh lawsuit.
Let me guess. They want to expense it.
Yep. They say it has to be expensed immediately. It's going to wipe out a huge chunk of your reported profit for the year.
Which makes you furious as the CEO.
Furious. And as an investor looking at that company's financials, you might just be incredibly confused.
I mean, it's the ultimate clash between business logic and accounting reality.
Right. Because from the CEO's perspective, every single rupee spent on those lawyers was totally necessary.
Absolutely necessary to secure and protect the golden goose. But the financial framework governing those numbers, it doesn't care about the CEO's strategic vision.
Is that all?
It cares about rigorous, objective categorization.
And that categorization is exactly what we are dissecting today. Welcome to a brand new deep dive on the Gap Advisors Ind AS Clinic podcast.
It's a great topic.
It really is. Today we are exploring the invisible machinery that, well, it defines the profit numbers you see on a financial statement.
And we should probably address the big question right up front.
Yeah, why should you care? Like, why should any person investing their hard-earned money in shares of a listed company care about the microscopic details of accounting standards?
Because if you don't understand the rules of the game...
You don't really understand the score. Exactly.
Right. A company's reported profit isn't like some immutable law of physics.
No, it's a highly engineered output. It comes from strict and honestly sometimes really counterintuitive regulations.
So if you can't decode how a company classifies a single legal bill, you really cannot accurately assess its true value.
Which is why the resource we are pulling from today is so incredibly vital for anyone operating in this space.
Yeah, we are extremely lucky to have the source material.
We really are. It comes directly from the Gap Advisors issue repository, which you can find at gapadvisors.com.
And just to give you an idea of the scale here, this repository hosts over 4,500 issues.
Wow, 4,500.
Yeah, 4,500 issues and responses specifically focused on Ind AS.
The Indian accounting standards.
Right, as well as Indian GAAP. It's massive.
It is an absolute goldmine, especially because of how the ecosystem's built,
Right, because it's totally accessible.
Exactly. Any person can register for free on the site and submit their own specific complex issues regarding Ind AS and Indian GAAP.
And they don't just go into a void, right?
No, not at all. You get a detailed, authoritative response delivered directly to your inbox.
Which is amazing.
Right. I mean, if you are an auditor who needs to rigorously document exactly how you addressed a thorny issue for a client,
having access to an archive of 4,500 expert resolutions is, well, it's essentially a superpower.
it completely changes the game for documentation and compliance.
Totally. And the specific conflict we're unpacking today, this battle over capitalizing legal costs,
Yeah.
it was actually featured in the 203rd edition of the Gap Advisors Task Weekly newsletter.
Oh, the newsletter, yeah. Authored by C.A. Manish C. Iyer.
Exactly. The director of Gap Advisors.
Which, by the way, is a remarkable run. Like, over 230 editions of that newsletter have been published to date.
It's an incredible body of work.
Yeah. If you are a professional operating in the finance or audit space and you are registered on LinkedIn, subscribing to that newsletter for free is like a no-brainer.
Highest ROI action you can take for your continued education.
100%. And as we'll discuss later, if you find yourself completely tangled in your own complex Ind AS or IFRS issues,
You can get direct help.
exactly.
Huh.
You can actually book a one-on-one consultation with the author directly from his page on topmate.io.
That's a huge resource. But before we dive headfirst into the mechanics of this specific patent issue,
We need some ground rules.
yeah, we need to lay down a few technical ground rules for the listener. First, the standard but vital disclaimer.
Always important.
Right. The views expressed in this deep dive are the personal views of the author and are not binding.
Got it. Personal views, not binding.
Exactly. The financial landscape is highly nuanced, so we strongly request that you seek the help of a qualified expert before taking any action.
Or refraining from any action based on what we discussed today.
Right, because every company's balance sheet has its own unique fingerprints.
Yeah, we are exploring the underlying anatomy, but you always need a professional to look at your specific patient.
Precisely. Secondly, we need to establish the fundamental parameters of the financial reality we are operating within for this case.
Okay, lay it out for us.
The functional and presentation currency is the Indian rupee.
INR.
Right. This is a critical baseline. It means any currency other than the functional currency, whether it's US dollars, euros, or yen.
Those are strictly foreign currencies.
Yes. Considered foreign under this framework, which triggers its own complex set of translation rules that we are definitely not dealing with today.
Good. So we are anchored firmly in rupees. No exchange rate volatility to, muddy the waters.
Exactly. And finally, the reporting period.
Right.
In the Indian corporate framework we are discussing, the beginning of the reporting period is fixed at April 1st.
And the end of the reporting period is strictly March 31st.
Correct. Everything we are about to analyze happens within the pressure cooker of that specific 12-month window.
All right. The technical stage is officially set.
Let's get into it.
So our mission today is to take this highly specific real-world scenario regarding patent infringement costs
Right.
and determine exactly how the strict rules of Ind AS dictate financial reality.
We are going to look at a company, let's just call them ALTD.
ALTD.
Got it.
And figure out why two legal bills for the exact same asset are treated like entirely different species of financial data.
Let's lay out the precise timeline for ALTD, because in accounting, timing isn't just a factor.
It's the whole ballgame.
It is often the entire ballgame, yes.
Okay, here are the facts from the source material. ALTD has been grinding away at a project.
Probably for years.
Yeah, definitely years. And on August 20th, 2017, they cross a massive finish line.
They get the patent.
They are officially granted the patent.
August 20th, 2017. That date is like the anchor point for everything that follows.
Why is that date so important?
Because it is the exact moment the abstract idea legally crystallizes into an identifiable asset.
Right, it's real now. Now, we are operating within the 2017-18 reporting period.
That April to March window we talked about.
Exactly. During this specific year, ALTD incurs two distinct costs directly related to this new patent.
Oh.
The first is a bill for 2,40,000 rupees. This is the fee paid to officially register the patent.
Right, this is the bureaucratic toll booth.
Toll booth, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the government requires a fee to formally stamp your paperwork and enter your intellectual property into the official registry.
So it's administrative, but totally unavoidable.
You have to pay it.
But then, the plot thickens. Before the financial year closes, ALTD gets hit with a much larger bill.
Here we go.
They have to pay 3,20,000 rupees to successfully prosecute a patent infringement suit against a competitor.
Right, so someone saw their brilliant new patent and tried to rip it off,
Exactly, and ALTD had to drag them to court to stop them.
but they won the case.
They won. They successfully defended their property. And one final piece of contextual data here.
What's that?
Management expects this patent to have an economic life of 8 years.
8 years, okay.
Yeah, it's not going to generate revenue forever. It has an 8-year window of viability before it becomes obsolete or the patent expires.
So we have a fixed 8-year horizon to derive economic benefits.
Right?
And we have 2 significant legal expenditures incurred in the exact same 12-month reporting window.
The tension here for the accounting department at ALTD is massive.
Ooh, I bet. They are preparing the financial statements for the 2017-18 year, and they have a total of 5,60,000 rupees in legal bills sitting on the desk.
Which brings us back to the core conflict. As the CEO, I want both of those bills capitalized.
Naturally, you want them added to the value of the patent on the balance sheet.
Yes, because if I capitalize them, they become an asset, they get amortized.
Right, spread out over the 8-year life of the patent.
Exactly. So my profit for 2017-18 stays high, my investors are happy, and honestly, my bonus is secure.
But if you have to expense them?
That entire 5,60,000 rupees gets ripped directly out of my profits for this year.
Your bottom line tanks.
Tanks completely.
So the stakes for the company's valuation are incredibly high here.
Very high. The central issue we must resolve is isolated to that second larger bill.
The lawsuit?
Right. Can the 3,20,000 rupees spent fighting a competitor be capitalized as part of the cost of the internally generated patent?
Or must it be recognized immediately as an expense in the statement of profit and loss?
Okay, let me try an analogy to anchor this for you, the listener, because the semantic difference between these two bills can feel a bit arbitrary to a layperson.
Yeah, an analogy would be great.
Let's step out of the abstract world of intellectual property and look at real estate.
Okay, real estate.
Say I buy a massive plot of land to build a new manufacturing facility.
Right.
The cost of registering the deed, paying the stamp duty to the local government, that is obviously part of acquiring the land.
Definitely. You cannot legally claim ownership or build anything until that fee is paid.
Right. It makes perfect intuitive sense that the registration fee becomes part of the capitalized cost of my land.
The analogy tracks perfectly so far. The registration is a necessary, unavoidable hurdle to bring the asset into your legal possession.
And make it ready for my intended use.
Exactly.
But let's advance the timeline. A year later, I drive out to my land to start surveying for the factory, and I find a group of trespassers.
Oh.
Yeah, they've set up a whole scrap metal operation on my property.
Yeah.
And they refuse to leave.
So you have to go to court.
I have to hire a high-priced legal team, go through months of litigation, and finally get a court order to forcefully evict them.
Which costs a fortune.
A literal fortune.
Yeah.
Now, when the dust settles, does that massive legal bill make my piece of land inherently more valuable in the open market?
I mean...
Like if I go to sell that dirt the next day, can I charge the buyer a 20% premium just because I had to pay a lawyer to kick people off of it?
It is a brilliant way to reframe the problem, and the answer, of course, is no.
Right. The buyer doesn't care about your legal battles.
No. The dirt hasn't magically acquired better drainage. It hasn't moved closer to the highway.
It hasn't expanded inside.
Exactly. It is the
Right.
exact same underlying asset it was before the trespassers arrest.
Exactly. The intrinsic value hasn't changed at all.
Yeah.
So pushing this back to ALTD and their patent,
Right.
why does the CEO feel so strongly that the lawsuit costs should be capitalized?
Well, from the executive suite, both of these bills, the registration and the lawsuit, were paid to lawyers.
Oh.
Both were about securing this specific patent, and both feel like the unavoidable cost of doing business in a competitive market.
Right, but there's a difference in the logic there.
The CEO's logic is driven by the concept of strategic defense.
Okay, strategic defense.
In their mind, an unchallenged patent is inherently less secure and therefore less valuable than a patent that has been tested and upheld in court.
I can see that. Defeating a competitor sends a huge signal to the market.
It deters future infringers and theoretically secures the monopoly for that 8-year economic life.
So from a purely business strategy standpoint, that lawsuit feels like an investment in the asset's earning power.
Exactly.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, if I'm an investor, I might actually prefer to buy a company whose patents have survived a legal stress test.
Sure.
It proves the IP is ironclad.
It does prove the legal resilience of the IP. But here is where we hit the immovable wall of the accounting framework.
The rules?
The rules. We cannot rely on strategic business logic or market signaling or the CEO's gut feelings to build a balance sheet.
Because if we did...
If we allowed companies to capitalize strategic wins or market signaling, the balance sheet would cease to be an objective record of historical costs.
It would just become a subjective work of fiction.
Which is the auditor's absolute worst nightmare.
Exactly. So to resolve this, we must dive into the exact wording of the governing standard.
Right. We have to strip away all the emotion.
And look at the clinical rules of Ind AS 38.
Ind AS 38, which is the specific standard dedicated to intangible assets.
Intangible assets, the things you can't touch or weigh or, measure with a ruler.
Software, copyrights, trademarks.
And in ALTD's case, patents.
Because they lack physical substance, they are incredibly susceptible to manipulation.
Oh, totally. You can easily prove the existence and cost of a delivery truck.
Exactly. Proving the true cost of an algorithm requires a much tighter regulatory net.
So where does that net begin?
It begins with paragraph 24 of Ind AS 38,
Paragraph 24.
which dictates a fundamental, non-negotiable rule. An intangible asset shall be measured initially at cost.
Cost. I mean, it sounds so simple. You look at the receipt, you write down the number.
But I'm guessing cost is a highly loaded term in this context.
Oh, it is arguably one of the most litigated and debated words in the entire accounting lexicon.
Really?
Yeah. It seems simple if you were buying a patent from another company, right? You look at the purchase agreement, and boom, there's your cost.
But ALTD didn't buy this patent off a shelf.
No, they didn't. They created it.
Yeah.
The standard classifies this as an internally generated intangible asset.
Internally generated. That means they built it totally in-house.
Right. They have their own scientists in the lab using their own equipment, conducting experiments.
Failing, trying again over months or maybe even years.
And that is the absolute crux of the difficulty. When a company is building something over a long period, defining the cost to the final asset becomes a highly complex archaeological dig.
You're digging through years of operational expenses.
Right. Where do the general research expenses end and the specific asset costs begin?
Good question.
To answer that, we have to examine paragraph 65 of Ind AS 38.
Paragraph 65.
This paragraph provides the absolute starting gun for what can be considered a cost.
So we are looking for the exact moment the standard allows ALTD to start tallying up the receipts for the balance sheet.
Let's look at the exact mechanism. Paragraph 65 states that the cost of an internally generated intangible asset is the sum of expenditure incurred strictly from the date when the intangible asset first meets specific recognition criteria.
From the date when it first meets the recognition criteria.
Outlined in the standard, yeah.
That implies there is a hard boundary line in time.
Oh, it is an absolute cliff edge.
Wow.
The clock for capitalization does not start when the CEO has a brilliant shower thought.
Right.
It doesn't start when the board approves an R&D budget.
So when does it start?
The clock only starts when the project meets extremely stringent, demonstrable criteria. Things like technical feasibility being established, management's intention, and ability to complete and use the asset being proven.
That's great.
And the ability to reliably measure the expenditure attributable to the asset during its development.
So if I'm looking at ALTD, what is that specific date for them?
Based on the facts provided, the date the asset is solidly anchored and formally recognized is August 20th, 2017.
The date the patent was officially granted.
Yes.
Wait, if the starting gun fires on August 20th, what happens to all the money they spent on August 19th?
Or the year before that.
Yeah, the salaries of the scientists, the lab equipment, the failed prototypes. If it was incurred before the asset officially met the criteria, is it just gone?
This brings us to one of the most critical investor protection mechanisms in the entire framework.
Okay.
Paragraph 65 explicitly references another rule, paragraph 71.
Paragraph 71.
Paragraph 71 drops a hammer on retroactive accounting.
How so?
It strictly prohibits the reinstatement of expenditure previously recognized as an expense.
Okay, let's play this out because the implications for anyone reading a financial statement are massive.
Huge.
Let's look at a high-stakes scenario. Imagine a massive pharmaceutical company trying to cure a specific disease.
Okay.
They spend 5 years and hundreds of millions of rupees running clinical trials that fail.
Brutal.
Because they haven't proven technical feasibility, they haven't met the recognition criteria.
Right.
The standard forces them to expense all of that research money.
Year after year, those hundreds of millions bleed directly into their profit and loss statement.
Severely dragging down their reported earnings. The investors are taking a massive beating.
That is the harsh reality of R&D. The framework mandates caution.
You cannot claim you are building a valuable asset if you are just burning money on failed experiments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The default position is to expense it.
But let's say in year 6, a scientist tweaks the formula, they run the trial, and boom, it works.
It's a miracle cure.
Yeah. They meet the recognition criteria, they get the patent, and they instantly have an asset worth billions on the open market.
A huge win.
So does paragraph 71 mean that the company cannot look back at those previous 5 years of expenses, scoop up all those hundreds of millions of rupees,
And say, actually, all those failures were just the necessary steps to build this massive asset.
Right, like, so we are going to retroactively capitalize them and reverse all those past losses. Can they do that?
No, that is exactly what it means. The prohibition is absolute and unyielding.
Wow.
Once an expense has been recognized in the profit and loss statement in a previous reporting period, it is permanently locked in.
Permanently.
You cannot go back and resurrect dead expenses just because the project eventually became successful.
If I'm an investor, I should be incredibly thankful for paragraph 71.
Oh, absolutely.
If companies could reinstate past expenses, it would be an open invitation to massive financial fraud.
Totally. A failing company could burn millions on useless pet projects, hide the damage by claiming it's all R&D leading to an asset.
And then find one tiny patent to justify moving years of operating losses onto the balance sheet.
They could artificially inflate their net worth overnight.
It would make historical financial statements completely unreliable.
An investor looking at a 5-year trend would never know if the losses reported in year 2 might suddenly be erased and transformed into assets in year 6.
Paragraph 71 provides finality.
The line is drawn in the sand.
Only the costs incurred after the August 20th recognition date can even be considered for capitalization by a LTD.
Okay, so ALTD accepts that the past is the past. The clock starts on August 20th.
Right.
But just because the clock is ticking doesn't mean every invoice that comes through the door gets added to the balance sheet, right?
How do the accountants sort the valid asset costs from the regular everyday expenses?
This is where we transition from the timeline to the actual nature of the expenses.
Okay.
We have to meticulously apply the capitalization test found in paragraph 66 of Ind AS 38.
Paragraph 66.
This paragraph defines what are known as permitted directly attributable costs.
It's the golden rule.
The golden rule, exactly. The filter through which every single invoice must pass.
So if a cost passes the paragraph 66 filter, it gets to live on the balance sheet as an asset.
Right.
If it fails, it dies on the P&L as an expense.
Perfectly said.
What is the exact wording of this golden rule?
Paragraph 66 states that the cost of an internally generated intangible asset comprises, and this is the critical phrase, all directly attributable costs necessary to create, produce, and prepare the asset to be capable of operating in the manner intended by management.
Capable of operating in the manner intended by management. That feels incredibly specific.
It is.
It's not just about creating the asset, it's about getting it to the exact state where it can do the job management wants it to do.
Precisely. It is about reaching the threshold of operational readiness.
And standard setters rarely leave a phrase like that open to pure interpretation, right?
No, because management could argue that almost anything is intended.
True.
So the standard provides an exhaustive list of examples of what qualifies as directly attributable.
Let's walk through the 4 permitted categories because they really reveal the logic of the framework.
Let's hear them. What gets to pass the filter?
Okay, Category A permits the capitalization of costs of materials and services used or consumed in generating the intangible asset.
Okay, that's the physical foundation.
Right.
If we're talking about a physical prototype related to a patent, it's the raw steel, the chemicals, the specialized testing services outsourced to a third-party lab.
The actual ingredients.
Correct.
Now, Category B permits costs of employee benefits arising from the generation of the intangible asset.
So this isn't the HR department or the cafeteria staff.
Definitely not.
This is the direct compensation for the software engineers writing the code, the scientists in the lab running the trials.
The people whose labor is physically manifesting the asset.
Exactly. Direct labor.
Now, Category C is highly relevant to our case today.
Oh, what is it?
It permits the capitalization of fees to register a legal right.
Ah, there it is, perfectly spelled out.
And just to complete the list, Category D permits the capitalization of the amortization of patents and licenses that are used to generate the intangible asset.
Wait, break that last one down for me. Amortizing a patent to build a patent.
Yes. Imagine ALTD couldn't build their new algorithm from scratch.
Okay.
They had to license a foundational piece of code from another tech company for 5 years.
Got it.
As they use up that 5-year license to build their new permanent algorithm, the wear and tear, the amortization of that license code is considered a direct cost of building the new asset.
That is a fascinating layer of complexity.
It really is.
It's like using a rented bulldozer to build your own house. The rental fee of the bulldozer is part of the cost of the house.
A perfect analogy. But let's bring the focus back to ALTD and their 2 legal bills.
Right. Let's run the first bill the $240,000 registration fee through the filter of paragraph 66.
Well, it feels like a slam dunk. The standard literally has a category labeled fees to register a legal right. The 2.4 lakh fee fits perfectly into category C.
It is a textbook application of the rule, but it's important to understand why the standard setters included category C.
Right. Why is a legal fee considered part of the creation of the asset?
I think it goes back to that key phrase we highlighted, capable of operating in the manner intended.
Okay,
Let me try another analogy here.
go for it.
Let's say I'm building a complex industrial manufacturing machine.
Okay.
I pay the engineers to design it. That's category B, employee benefits.
Right?
I buy the specialized steel and the internal computer chips. That's category A, materials.
Makes sense.
The engineers assemble it on the factory floor. Physically, the machine exists. It is completely built. But because it operates at extreme temperatures, government regulations state I cannot legally turn it on until a certified inspector reviews it, and I pay a massive licensing fee to the state safety board.
A very common scenario in heavy industry, actually.
Right. So physically, the machine is ready, but operationally, it is not capable of operating in the manner intended because if I turn it on, the government will shut my factory down.
The machine is essentially a very expensive paperweight until you pay that licensing fee.
Exactly. Therefore, paying the fee is the final necessary step to prepare the asset for its intended use.
The fee is functionally a component of the machine.
That logic holds up flawlessly under Ind AS 38.
Okay.
The patent ALTD developed is legally impotent until it is registered.
Right.
The registration fee is the final key turned in the lock that transitions the algorithm from an internal secret into a legally enforceable, operationally capable asset.
Therefore, ALTD is entirely correct and legally obligated to capitalize the 2,40,000 rupees.
Yes, it successfully passes the test and moves on to the balance sheet.
Okay. So the CEO gets a partial victory, the smaller bill's capitalized, the profit hit is mitigated.
But
But what happens when the accountants look at the second invoice? The 3,20,000 rupees spent fighting the lawsuit.
it's a legal fee. It relates to the patent. Why does the auditor immediately pump the brakes?
Because the accounting framework doesn't just define what a cost is. It is equally obsessed with defining what a cost is not. To understand the fate of the lawsuit bill, we must leave the permitted categories and enter what we can call the exclusion zone.
The exclusion zone. It sounds ominous.
It kind of is for a CFO.
Where are the boundaries of this zone drawn?
We find them in paragraph 67 of Ind AS 38.
Okay.
While paragraph 66 gave us the golden rules for capitalization, paragraph 67 explicitly details the expenditures that are categorically barred from being components of the cost of an internally generated intangible asset.
So these are the guardrails designed to prevent financial camouflage.
Exactly. These are the costs that a CEO might try to argue are related to the asset, but the standard setters have preemptively shut them down.
And the standard provides 3 very specific, non-negotiable exclusions, right?
Yes. Let's walk through the rationale for each because they build the foundation for our final verdict on ALTD.
All right, what's the first one?
Exclusion A prohibits capitalizing, selling, administrative, and other general overhead expenditure unless this expenditure can be directly attributed to preparing the asset for use.
So we are talking about the broad costs of running the company.
Right.
The rent for the corporate headquarters, the salary of the CEO, the electricity bill for the accounting department.
Correct. The logic here is proximity and causation.
Proximity, okay.
While ALTD couldn't have developed the patent without a corporate headquarters or a CEO, those costs are too diluted, too far removed from the actual creation of the specific algorithm.
Makes sense. If a company could allocate a portion of the CEO's massive bonus to the capitalized cost of a new software patent, they could arbitrarily inflate the asset's value to make their balance sheet look stronger.
While simultaneously hiding executive compensation from the immediate expense lines?
It's a double win for a manipulative management team.
Yeah.
You hide the cost and pump up the assets. I completely see why the standard forbids it.
Overheads must be expensed unless you can prove a direct, undeniable link.
What is the second exclusion?
This one is particularly fascinating from an investor perspective. Exclusion B prohibits capitalizing identified inefficiencies and initial operating losses incurred before the asset achieves planned performance.
Wait, identified inefficiencies.
Yes.
So if a company is just disorganized or they make massive mistakes during the development process, they aren't allowed to bundle the cost of those mistakes into the value of the asset.
That is exactly the rule. Let's pressure test this with a scenario.
Okay.
Imagine ALTD is developing this patent, and because of poor project management, they order the wrong, highly expensive servers.
Oh, no.
They plug them in, they fry the motherboards, and they have to scrap them and buy the correct ones.
A total disaster.
Right, and the CEO might say, well, figuring out which servers work is part of the divestment cost, so capitalize both sets of servers.
But the auditor would step in and say, no, frying the first set of servers wasn't necessary to build the asset. It was a mistake. It was an inefficiency.
Precisely. Think about the economic reality of an inefficiency. Wasting money does not magically endow the final asset with greater economic potential.
No, it doesn't.
An algorithm doesn't generate more revenue just because the team was bad at managing their server budget while coding it.
Tying this directly back to you, the listener, the investor, if a standard allowed companies to capitalize inefficiencies, it would be the ultimate red flag hidden in plain sight.
Definitely.
An incredibly poorly run, wasteful company could actually report larger assets on their balance sheet than a lean, efficient competitor, simply because they wasted more money during development.
They would be taking the financial damage caused by their own incompetence and disguising it as an asset.
Actively deceiving the people investing their hard-earned money.
It would penalize efficiency and reward waste on the balance sheet. The standard violently rejects this.
You only get to capitalize the cost of doing it right, not the cost of doing it wrong.
The cost of the mistake is an immediate loss, and it must be exposed in the profit and loss statement for the investors to see.
That is a phenomenal piece of investor protection. I love that rule. Okay, what is the final exclusion in the zone?
Exclusion C prohibits capitalizing expenditure on training staff to operate the asset.
Now, I have to challenge this one.
I thought you might.
Let's pull on that thread. Why is training excluded? Let's go back to my industrial machine analogy.
Or better yet, let's say ALTD built a revolutionary new internal software platform to manage all their logistics.
Okay, let's use that.
They spend millions coding it. It passes the recognition criteria, but the software is useless. It cannot operate in the manner intended unless the logistics employees know which buttons to click.
Right. The humans are the interface. Isn't training the staff an absolute prerequisite for the asset to function?
That is the intuitive operational argument, and it is the exact argument CFOs make all the time.
It makes sense to me.
But the accounting framework demands a different, much more philosophical approach to what constitutes an asset.
Okay, lay it on me.
The difference hinges on the concept of control. Yes. To recognize an asset on a balance sheet, the entity must have absolute control over the future economic benefits flowing from it.
Okay.
When ALTD trains its logistics team on the new software, they are undoubtedly increasing the economic potential of the company. They are upgrading their human capital.
Right. Smarter employees make the company more money.
But under the strict definitions of accounting, a company does not control its human capital. A highly trained employee can walk into the CEO's office tomorrow, hand in their resignation, and walk out the door.
Taking all that valuable training with them to a competitor.
Yes. You can't put a padlock on a human being the way you can put a padlock on a server rack.
Exactly. Because you lack absolute control over the humans, you cannot recognize their upgraded skills as a capitalized asset.
Furthermore, training the staff doesn't change the intrinsic nature of the software itself. The lines of code remain identical before and after the training seminar.
You are altering the environment around the asset, not preparing the asset itself.
Therefore, training costs must always be expensed.
Okay, I see the logic. The guardrails are incredibly tight. Overheads, mistakes, and human training are all barred from the balance sheet.
Completely barred.
But let's bring this all the way back to the main event. ALTD. And the 3,20,000 rupee lawsuit.
The lawsuit, yes.
Where does a massive, successful legal defense fit into these exclusions?
This is where we arrive at the absolute crux of the matter.
Because if I'm the CEO, I'm arguing that the lawsuit isn't an overhead. It's not a mistake or an inefficiency. And it's certainly not staff training.
Right.
I successfully defended the patent against a competitor. I protected the monopoly. I secured the future cash flows.
You did.
Doesn't that prove objectively the value of the patent?
Right.
Doesn't winning that lawsuit fundamentally solidify the asset's worth in the market?
From a market perspective, absolutely. If a venture capitalist is looking to buy ALTD, the fact that the patent has survived a brutal litigation stress test makes the company significantly more attractive.
The strategic value of that legal victory is immense.
It is immense.
So why wouldn't that immense strategic value be reflected in the capitalized cost? Why wouldn't the accountants want the balance sheet to reflect that this is now a battle-tested premium asset?
Because accounting is not designed to measure the strategic premium or the theoretical market value of internally generated assets.
It's not.
No. It is designed to measure historical cost based on a strict set of operational criteria. We have to apply the filter of paragraph 66 one final time.
The golden rule. Capable of operating in the manner intended.
Exactly. Let's look at the timeline again. On August 20th, the patent was granted.
Right.
Shortly after, ALTD paid the $240,000 registration fee. At the exact moment that fee was paid and the registration was finalized, what was the status of the asset?
It was legally registered. It was fully complete. ALTD could immediately start using the algorithm in their products.
Correct. It had crossed the threshold. It was, in the eyes of the accounting standard, fully and completely ready for its intended use.
Okay.
The asset creation phase was officially over.
I think I see where the trap springs.
The lawsuit happened after this point. When ALTD pays 320,000 rupees to fight the competitor, they are not spending money to prepare the asset for use.
They're spending money to defend an asset that is already perfectly capable of operating.
Going back to your land analogy, kicking the trespassers off doesn't make the soil richer.
No, it doesn't prepare the land for a factory.
It just restores the legal boundary that was supposed to be there in the first place. You aren't building, you are just policing.
That is the precise distinction. You are spending money to prevent a catastrophic loss of value, not to create new intrinsic value.
Right. The incurrence of cost to prosecute a patent infringement is a maintenance cost. It is protecting the status quo.
So hit me with the final verdict from the Gap Advisors Repository. What is the official resolution for ALTD?
The directive from the source material is unequivocal. The 320,000 rupees incurred to successfully prosecute a patent infringement suit against a competitor shall not be capitalized to the cost of the patent.
The auditor wins.
The auditor holds the line. The repository states that because the cost does not make the patent ready for its intended use, the expenditure fails the capitalization test of Ind AS 38.
Therefore, it must be recognized immediately as an expense in the statement of profit and loss for the 2017-18 reporting period.
Let's truly unpack the financial math on this, because we really need to understand exactly how much pain this single accounting classification inflicts on the CEO and the company's reported numbers.
The financial impact of this semantic difference, the difference between preparing an asset and defending an asset, is staggering when you look at the bottom line.
Let's run the numbers, comparing the CEO's dream scenario against the accounting reality.
Okay, the CEO's dream scenario, capitalization.
Right.
If the auditor had caved and allowed ALTD to capitalize the 320,000 rupee lawsuit, that money would move onto the balance sheet as part of the patent's value.
And the text told us the patent has an expected economic life of 8 years.
Right, so the company wouldn't take the full hit immediately. They would amortize it, meaning they would divide that cost evenly over the 8 years.
So we take the 320,000 divided by 8 years, and we get an amortization expense of exactly 40,000 rupees per year.
Right, so in the 2017-18 financial year, the CEO only has to report a 40,000 rupee expense on the P&L regarding that lawsuit.
Which isn't bad at all.
Not at all. The remaining 280,000 is safely hidden on the balance sheet, waiting to be slowly bled out over the next 7 years.
The company's profit for the current year looks incredibly healthy.
Now let's look at the reality dictated by Ind AS 38.
The painful reality.
Because the cost must be expensed, there's no amortization, there's no spreading the pain.
None. ALTD must absorb the entire 320,000 rupees as a direct hit to their profit and loss statement in the exact year it was incurred.
A dollar-for-dollar hit.
Oh.
So because of this one accounting rule, ALTD's reported profit for 2017-18 instantly drops by 280,000 rupees compared to the CEO's scenario.
That is a massive swing.
If I'm an investor looking at their earnings per share, their EPS, that difference could easily be the deciding factor between me buying their stock, holding it, or dumping it entirely.
Absolutely. If the profit margin is tight, that 3.2 lakh expense could literally push the company from a reported net profit into a reported net loss for the year.
And that profound impact is exactly why the accounting standards exist and why auditors must be so uncompromising in enforcing them.
The rules are designed to prevent management from smoothing out their earnings.
Yeah. If the CEO could capitalize the lawsuit, they would be artificially inflating the current year's profit while secretly burdening the next 7 years with the ghost of a past legal battle.
It's essentially borrowing future profit to make today look better.
Precisely. The goal of the framework is transparency and economic reality.
And the economic reality is that ALTD had to spend a massive amount of cash this year to defend their territory.
The investors have an absolute right to see the cash outflow reflected immediately in the performance metrics of this year.
By forcing the expense, the standard ensures that when an investor looks at the balance sheet, they are seeing the actual historical cost of generating the asset, not a bloated number padded with legal maintenance fees.
It keeps the concrete solid, going back to my metaphor from earlier. It stops the numbers from turning into wet clay that management can mold into whatever shape looks best for the quarterly earnings call.
It clears the diagnostic muddy waters. The standard forces discipline.
Now, before we start wrapping up this incredibly dense topic, I want to touch on something really crucial for our global listeners or for investors who are looking at multinationals.
Good point.
Throughout this entire deep dive, we've been referencing Ind AS, the Indian accounting standard. We are operating in rupees. We are looking at the April to March reporting window. But the modern business landscape is inherently global.
It is. A tech company might be headquartered in Bangalore, but they are competing for capital against firms in Silicon Valley, London, and Tokyo.
This brings up a vital point regarding the harmonization of global financial frameworks, specifically regarding IFRS.
The International Financial Reporting Standards. IFRS is the global baseline used in over 140 jurisdictions around the world.
So if you listening right now are sitting in Canada or the UK, or if an analyst is looking at a company that reports under IFRS, how much of what we just discussed actually applies to them?
Do they have a completely different set of rules for patent lawsuits?
What is highly significant here is that while the response provided in the Gap Advisors repository is issued strictly under the Ind AS framework,
there is absolutely no difference between Ind AS and IFRS regarding this specific topic of internally generated intangible assets and the capitalization of subsequent costs.
Wait, no difference at all. The rules are completely identical.
They mirror each other completely. The foundational philosophies, the specific wording of the paragraphs we dissected.
Paragraph 65 regarding recognition criteria.
Paragraph 66 regarding directly attributable costs.
And paragraph 67 regarding the exclusion zone, they are perfectly aligned.
So what you were saying is this entire deep dive, the breakdown of the timeline, the land analogy, the debate over training staff.
And the final, definitive conclusion that legal defense costs must be expensed immediately.
That logic translates seamlessly across borders.
Exactly. Whether ALTD is a mid-cap tech firm operating in Mumbai under Ind AS, or a massive multinational pharmaceutical company headquartered in Frankfurt operating under IFRS.
The accounting treatment for that 3,20,000 rupee patent infringement lawsuit remains exactly the same.
The auditor in Germany will give the exact same answer as the auditor in India. It is an expense. It hits the P&L immediately.
That is incredibly powerful for an investor to know.
It means the vocabulary of business is truly global on this front. You don't have to learn a completely new set of rules to understand how a European company is valuing its patents compared to an Indian company.
The guardrails protecting the balance sheet are harmonized.
It allows for true comparability across international markets, which is the ultimate goal of standard setters globally.
All right, let's take a breath and summarize the journey we've been on today.
Good idea. We started by looking at a CEO who was staring down two very different legal bills for the exact same patent in the exact same year.
A 2,40,000 rupee bill to register it, and a 3,20,000 rupee bill to defend it in court.
And we discovered that the entirety of the accounting treatment hinges on a profound, highly specific semantic distinction within the framework.
The distinction between preparing an asset and defending an asset.
We learned that paying the government to register the patent is the final, necessary step to make the asset capable of operating in the manner intended.
It passes the capitalization test. It becomes an asset.
But paying an army of lawyers to prosecute an infringement merely defends an asset that is already fully operational.
It is maintenance. It is protecting the status quo.
And therefore, it crashes headfirst into the exclusion zone. It fails the test, and it must be expensed immediately, taking a massive immediate bite out of the company's reported profits for that year.
And as we saw when we ran the math, that seemingly tiny difference in classification,
Asset versus expense.
it completely alters the financial reality presented to the investor.
It protects the integrity of the balance sheet. It ensures that investors are seeing real, intrinsic historical value, not just a pile of past legal bills masquerading as economic assets.
It is a perfect example of how rigid rules protect market transparency.
It truly is. Well, that brings us to the end of this extensive case study. I want to sincerely thank you, the audience, for investing your time with us today.
We know that diving into the microscopic mechanics of Ind AS 38 can be intense.
Yeah, but as we've hopefully proven, understanding this machinery is absolutely crucial for anyone who wants to seriously understand corporate finance.
It is the underlying grammar of the business world. You have to understand the grammar to read the story.
If you found this breakdown valuable, we have a few specific requests for you. First, please follow or subscribe to the Gap Advisors Ind AS Clinic podcasts.
We are available on Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube, whichever platform you prefer to use to consume your long-form financial content.
Hitting that subscribe button ensures you never miss a deep dive.
And for those who need to stay on the absolute cutting edge in real time, you should absolutely follow the Gap Advisors Ind AS Clinic channel on WhatsApp.
The landscape of accounting standards is constantly shifting, and the WhatsApp channel is the fastest way to get instant notifications delivered straight to your phone.
You'll get updates on all new podcasts, deep dives, newly released videos, the latest editions of the newsletter, alerts when new complex issues have been responded to in the repository, and critical bulletins when new standards or amendments are issued by the regulatory bodies.
It is essentially a direct feed to the pulse of Indian accounting. We also have a very strong request regarding the community.
Please share this deep dive among your professional contacts.
Send the link to your colleagues in the finance department. Share it with your audit teams before the busy season starts.
And critically, especially, share this with students who are currently pursuing the rigorous CA course.
The CA curriculum is incredibly demanding, and bridging the gap between theoretical textbook knowledge and practical real-world application is the hardest part of the journey.
Case studies like ALTD provide that bridge.
Exactly. Our overarching goal is to help spread critical, practical knowledge on the application of Indian accounting standards, and organic, word-of-mouth sharing within the profession is exactly how that happens.
And finally, remember that while we love exploring these scenarios on this podcast, you don't have to navigate your own professional crises alone.
If you are sitting at your desk, staring at a massive, tangled accounting knot regarding Ind AS or IFRS for a client, and you just can't figure out the right treatment,
You can go straight to the source. You can book a direct one-on-one consultation regarding your specific Ind AS and IFRS issues with the author of the repository, CA Manish C. Iyer.
you can book that session directly from his professional page on topmate.io. It is direct access to decades of highly specialized expertise.
But before we officially sign off, I want to leave you with a final, highly complex puzzle to ponder.
Ooh, I love a good thought experiment. Lay it on us.
Think all the way back to our discussion of paragraph 71.
The rule about past expenses.
We established that this rule is absolute. It strictly prohibits reinstating past expenses once an internally generated asset, like a software algorithm or a pharma patent, is finally recognized.
You cannot look backward.
Yeah.
Once an R&D cost is pushed to the profit and loss statement as an expense, it is permanently locked in as a loss. It can never be capitalized.
Right. The absolute cliff edge. The line in the sand protecting the investor from retroactive fraud.
Exactly.
Now, put yourself in the shoes of a CFO or a lead accountant at a company that lives and dies by research and development. Think about the immense, almost agonizing psychological and professional pressure that paragraph 71 places on management to identify the exact precise moment a research project actually crosses the threshold and becomes viable.
Oh, well, I see the trap.
If the CFO declares viability too early, if they start capitalizing costs because they are overly optimistic, the independent auditors will come in at the end of the year, review the technical data, and reject it.
The auditors will say, no, this hasn't met the criteria yet. It's still just risky research.
The auditor will force a massive adjustment, pushing all those supposed assets back into the P&L as expenses.
Which destroys the company's projected earnings and shatters investor confidence.
So the CFO is terrified of jumping the gun. The incentive is to be incredibly cautious, to wait until the project is absolutely undeniably foolproof before starting the capitalization clock.
But what happens if they're overly cautious? What happens if the engineering team actually crossed the threshold of viability of September 1st, but the CFO, terrified of the auditors, waits until December 1st to officially declare it an asset?
Then every single rupee the company spends on development during September, October, and November, which could be millions upon millions of rupees for a major tech firm, is permanently trapped as an unrecoverable expense.
Because of paragraph 71, they can never get that money back onto the balance sheet.
They essentially vaporized millions of dollars of legitimate asset value simply because they were too scared to start the clock.
Precisely. A single day's difference in drawing that timeline, a single week of hesitation, could mean millions of rupees permanently damaging their reported profit rather than being safely stored and amortized as a valuable asset.
The tension between the fear of auditor rejection and the desperation to capitalize costs is immense.
It is a high-wire act with millions of dollars balancing on a microscopic interpretation of technical feasibility.
So the next time you, as an investor, look at a massive tech or pharma company's pristine balance sheet and you see billions of dollars sitting in the internally generated intangible assets column, don't just passively accept the total number.
Ask yourself the harder questions. Exactly when did management decide to start that clock?
How much perfectly good value did they leave behind as dead expenses because they were too cautious?
Or, conversely, how hard did they have to fight the auditors to prove that the clock started when they said it did?
The numbers are never just math. They are the artifacts of intense corporate negotiation.
That is a brilliant and slightly terrifying thought to end on. It perfectly proves that behind every dry number on a spreadsheet, there is a very human story of judgment, strategy, fear, and strict uncompromising rules. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. We will catch you on the next one.